Welcome to episode 29, 100 Years of Marine Corps Tankers, a station dedicated to honoring the legacy of Marine tankers and remembering the stories of what made the community special, told through those words of the Marines that towed the line. This is a very special episode as we are joined today by a Marine who has achieved the pinnacle of success through attaining the rank of Sergeant Major and has continued the level of dedication by remaining committed to God, country, and Corps throughout community involvement. Welcome to the channel, Sergeant Major Juan Hidalgo.
Hey, Jared, thanks a lot for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Sergeant Major. Thank you for coming on here and making the time. Since you were born and raised in San Diego, California, what ultimately led to your wanting to be a Marine in 1984?
You know what? That's a great question. I've been asked that several times. Really, it's service the country. But what led to that was the fact that I had a Vietnam, Korea, World War II veteran that lived across the street from me. And way before 1984, probably about 10 years earlier, about 8 years actually, I had already decided that I wanted to be a Marine. Listening to, and you remember back in the 70s when people would, if there was a project going on, everybody would come around the neighborhood, whatever, and everybody would join or help, listen. But Jack Wilkinson, retired Marine, would tell these awesome stories. And as a kid, you're hearing these stories about places like Iwo Jima, the Chosen Frozen, the Chosen Reservoir. You're hearing these stories. You're hearing Vietnam. I was like, wow, I want to do that. I want to serve my country. And my cousin and I would hear these stories together. And they're like, man. So we were that little kid going to the recruiter station at 10 years old saying, hey, we want to join you. Shut up, kid. Come back. And at 18, at 17, I was there saying, hey, I want to be a Marine. And so it was service to country, wanting to be a Marine, wanting to do all those cool things and defend my country.
So inspiring and very, very powerful. We answered the question of why you wanted to become a Marine, but did you know you wanted to become a Marine Corps tanker?
Absolutely. Hey, I'm vertically challenged, so I do not like to walk. That was the first thing that appealed to me. In boot camp, at recruit training in San Diego, in recruit training, I saw an M60 A1 Rice Passive drive by. And I in the bustle rack, I could see a cooler and just like cooler and some patio chairs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, and I was already set up for tanks anyways. I said, that's my MOS there.
After successfully graduating from Fort Knox and a successful recruiting aid tour, you reported to Company C, Charlie Company, Tractor Vehicle Company, as part of 1st Tank Battalion. What was the composition of this company back in 1985?
Very interesting that you ask a question like that because it was way different than it is today. People talk about, how there's not enough diversity. And at that time, there was still a low population of Hispanics. There was like, I kid you not, I remember all their names. There was only about 6 of us. And it's great to see where the Corps has come. I think it's interesting because back then, nobody would have thought that Hispanic young kid from National City would earn the rank of Sergeant Major. There weren't too many of us, but by the grace of God, hard work, of course, you can. I don't like people worrying about the color of one's skin. It matters the character of somebody, mm-hmm. Anybody, but regardless of color, age, they can do it. So it was very interesting. We only had about, I think at the time, 130 Marines, very small company, but we still remember back then you had 5 tanks per platoon. A lot of great individuals to this day. Some I stay in touch with. Some we've lost track with. It was at Camp Pendleton, as you know, 41 area. I was just talking about it with a Marine yesterday. So to me, like a lot of, I'm sure when you go back to your college, it's like your alma mater when you mm-hmm. drive into 41 area. Right. Lots changed there, but the ramp is still there. So very nice place, a lot of fond memories for a lot of the tankers that are out there that serve that 1st tanks, 41 area, right. Las Flores. I'm sure that it's like a homecoming whenever you go back there.
I was blessed with being able to serve there as the Alpha Company I&I, and individuals like yourself that were previous Marines from that era would come through and they'd be surprised that there's still the old armory building there. It's used for storage now, but that building's still there. And the tears in their eyes when they see that building and just the memories that flood through it, it's phenomenal. And I absolutely understand what you're saying. In 1989, you reported to San Diego, this time again at the Marine Corps Recruit Depot. Only this time you were not a recruit, rather you were a drill instructor. How did this time in tanks help you prepare for this billet?
Tanks always helps everybody. Why? Because we're some tough mothers. Okay. Well, I'm serious. Guys and people outside of I've been able to serve with a lot of other communities, but the guys in tanks, those guys that are going to watch this, I'm telling you, all of them, I don't care when they served, that they are, and I've been able to serve with a lot, like I said, but tankers are a unique group of individuals. So the way you get tough in tanks and the way you learn how to interact and the way you work with each other, and let's be honest, and this, we fight amongst each other,
Mm-hmm.
but we're still brothers.
Right.
I mean, we have that great relationship that we can fight, the proverbial FU sometimes, and everybody's going back and forth, and because I'm a better tanker than you are. That helps because it builds that camaraderie, it builds a competition, but it's always clean competition. So
Right.
when you go down a place like MCRD, where sometimes I was always warned, oh, it's so dirty, perhaps it was, but because of the tankers that brought me up taught me to be smart and to be, I said, wise and competitive. I've always been competitive, but to be that way, that helped me immensely when I got to MCRD. So it was never a thing that hurt me. Being a tanker has always helped.
I appreciate you saying that, and that's really the essence of this channel, and why I think that it's important for these individuals, for these interviews, because that is the essence of tankers, and I appreciate you bringing that, Sergeant Major. After a successful tour of Macon Marines, you reported to Charlie Company, this 3rd Tank Battalion in 1992. And here you were served as the platoon sergeant, platoon commander, tank leader, and also was promoted to the rank of staff sergeant. Mm-hmm. How was 3rd Tanks different from 1st Tanks in this era?
The ones at 29 Palms, one was at Camp Pendleton. Tankers are tankers. We're a little bit different because the restrictions at Camp Pendleton, and you train a lot more in 29 Palms. Everybody knows that. So it allows you, and I think it really allowed us to hone our skill. It really allowed us to be out there tanking quite often, if not, at least once, to say every day, but you're on that tank every day. Gosh darn, it's just different in that sense. But remember, I think we all need to remember that the name of the battalion, because we did change the 1st tank battalion, the name of the battalion isn't what really mattered. It was the individual tankers. What makes it, always what makes it, is that dirty, crusty Marine on that ramp every day, busting track, busting ruts, just doing what he has to do. That's what made all of our tank battalions what they are, that Marine. And I don't think we can ever lose sight of that. One of the other great things is, as we have rivalry. We like to, well, 1st tank, 2nd tank, 3rd tank. Tankers, that's all that matters. Those are the little nuances that we can talk about, but it really doesn't matter, because when it comes down to, as I said earlier, we're still brothers in arms, and we're brother tankers, and we're always going to remember that. The great thing about serving with so many great, and you've had many of them on already, it's neat because I stay in touch with a lot of my guys that were mentors, guys that I trained. And that is so neat because we are a brotherhood, and we do stay. The Marine Corps the Marine Corps is very tight, but then you take that tank element and we're even tighter. That's a hard thing for people outside of tanks to understand, the community and the relationship and the brotherhood of tankers.
I appreciate you saying that, because that this channel is just that. It's an opportunity for us to come together and express exactly what you're saying, as far as, what makes us special as a community, what makes us special as a brotherhood, and a sisterhood now. I mean, it's a very close knit family, and that's the thing. I mean, you get the family you're born into and the family you choose, and by all means, tankers are the family that we choose. In 1995, you returned to Fort Knox, this time as an instructor, and you ran the spectrum of available billets as an instructor, to include serving on special projects. What special projects were you responsible for during this time?
Wow, that's a wonderful question, and I kind of wasn't expecting that one, because I don't like to talk about it because it'll sound self-serving. But I've been very blessed, and because I'm a master gunner, I was asked to create a course there. And until recently, I was told that the course was still up and running, but it was the Tank Commander Gunners Reserve course for all reservists who come in because they have a steeper learning curve, and quite often might get promoted to different areas and times, and they need to learn how to be a gunner and a tank commander. So I created that course from scratch. It was very awesome dealing with Quantico, dealing with everybody, and I had a lot of other great tankers that I'd call to bounce things off so that we can make sure that this course would serve them well. Yeah, so that's one of the major things that I did as the special projects staff NCO was create that staff non-commissioned officers, create that course.
That's a very important course, and I do believe that up until recently, obviously with divestment that changes, but prior to that, we did use that course, and I think that even came into play when they were testing the Marines, the female Marines in particular. Elements of that was brought out in order to run that TCGST with the reserve aspect. Yeah, absolutely. In 1998, Company B called upon you to serve as the platoon sergeant, company master gunner, and then later that next year, you were promoted to gunnery sergeant. This tour brought about a deployment as part of the 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit as the company gunnery sergeant and the first sergeant for Headquarters and Service Company. Obviously, that's a very busy time there, especially with H&S. Can we attribute this experience as a first sergeant to what later fueled your later success as a sergeant major?
Absolutely. We have, like I keep saying, we have some great tankers out there, and great tankers like Mike Mummy. People like that, they talked to me and told me, hey, we know you want to be a first sergeant, and that was my desire. But my ultimate goal was to make sure that I always knew my job as a tanker. First and foremost, you may want to be a first sergeant, but it will always be the desire and the needs of the Corps. So I didn't want to not know my job. So I always stayed on top of things. And one of those was making sure my platoon was ready. And actually, I took out two. I was with the 11th MEU two different times. I was a platoon sergeant on two different MEUs, almost back to back. One came back, another, and we went right back out the next year. So it absolutely set me up, because where I'm getting to with that is what happened was I got back from my second one in 2001, and I had too much deployment time. If you recall back, at that time, they were talking about starting to pay Marines that have over 365 days of deployed time. After that, if you went to the field, you get paid $100. They said, wait a minute, I had way too many deployed days. I was up on already 300 days, over 300 days. And they said, we got to put you in H&S. But since you want to be a first sergeant, why don't we put you, if you'll, I'll do what you're told, but we recommend you take H&S company as the company gunny. And later the first sergeant got passed over, so I became the first sergeant. So absolutely, that helped me that year, because the following year we moved to Iraq, and I was selected over there in Iraq. So yeah, I did.
With being out in the 11th MEU, were you out there when 9/11 happened?
My second one was, we were on our way back. We had just left Hawaii when they hit the towers. And a tank platoon sergeant out with your Marines is just phenomenal. And I'm very blessed, because I don't know, there could be somebody else, but I think I'm the only tanker that has two as a platoon sergeant with the M1A1. Again, there could be another, I don't know.
I don't know.
Check out that.
That's an amazing experience, being able to do almost back to back. That's phenomenal. That's a lot of time at sea. In December of 2002, you were now assigned to Company A, and it is here where you deployed in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom, OIF, in January of 2004. Obviously, this is a very tense period of time, and Company A has already represented themselves very well on the channel, but I'll ask, from your perspective, what were some of the memories from this deployment?
The great Marines I was able to serve with. Actually, because remember, you just said, and we recall, I was an H&S company. Again, Mumbo is a phenomenal Marine, and he's like, wait a minute, he was the forward chief at the time. There's no way we're going to leave Hidalgo and H&S company. We got to get absolutely. I said, I want back on a company, and they pushed me right back into and not back, but into Alpha Company, and I took a platoon right away. And those Marines were really ready. They were like, let's go, and we had to do a lot of training while we were stateside, trained them up, got them ready. But just the caliber Marine that I had with me, brand new lieutenant. So those Marines were phenomenal. They did a great job in Iraq. I always attribute any success to those Marines.
And with that deployment, where I know that you guys basically were working split operations. Where were you in particularly stationed and focused?
Yeah, my platoon probably got we say pimped out all the time. We got put out to everybody. We went. Our first push was with 3-7 Kilo Company. We went out up to Basra. We got detached from Alpha Company. We went with 3-7. We moved up to Basra, and we detached from them as we moved further up to up to 7, and then we attached to second LAR, and that's when our biggest fighting occurred on the road to Baghdad. Second LAR, basically, Colonel Ray said, "Hey, tanks." He had a good conversation with myself. My lieutenant said, "Listen, we need you in front, and just anything that's coming south, it's an enemy. You guys are cleared hot." And following the no better friend, no worst enemy, we did exactly that.
Upon redeployment, you were then promoted and assigned as first sergeant to once again support company, except for this time it was Combat Service Support Battalion 10, part of the first FSSG. And then in 2004, you deployed once again as part of Operation Iraqi Freedom. During this deployment, did you pay special attention to tank units?
It was good to because I had a truck company on my first tour as a first sergeant. Had a truck company, so their job, ours was to resupply, and a lot of times I'd find the tank platoons didn't have things. I remember we were in Fallujah, and a tank, one of our tankers let me know that their TMB was down, turret network box, as you know, and I said, "Okay, no problem." So I went to Al-Assad, no, TQ, went to TQ, and we went to supply, and we made them, of course, at the time, I should say, of course, but at the time, the reason I found why they weren't having much success, but we got those supply clerks to look, find it, we took it back out to them. I actually hooked it up for them. And we did help, nobody's favorite, but guess what? Tankers need help. Right. You're a tanker. You're going to help your fellow tankers.
2004, upon redeployment, you served as a sergeant major for Combat Service Support Battalion 10. And then July of 2005, reported to Company F, 2nd Recruit Training Battalion. Went back to San Diego this time. And this time you're now there as the sergeant major. During this tour is when you were also promoted to sergeant major. This is now the second time back at the depot. How did the recruit depot change from the last time you were there?
Wow, a lot of things change. You don't see people in Charlie's anymore. You didn't see, once in a while. So a lot of changes, but drill instructors, the great drill instructors down there are still doing a phenomenal job in making Marines. So that's the biggest thing that still happens, regardless of all the, if you will, politics that occur and the subtle changes or even major changes. Those drill instructors are still down there doing a great job into this day as well.
January 2007, you then reported to Marine Light Attack Helicopter Squadron 169 in Camp Pendleton, California, and once again deployed in support of OAF, this time 06 TAC 08. And I've heard that the Marine Light Attack Helicopter Squadron are basically very similar to a tank unit in that they're very small, very proud of who they are, and certainly do get the job done and do it very well. As their sergeant major, what similarities did you see with this unit in particular, coming from a tank unit?
I saw the closeness of the unit, very close camaraderie. At the same time, though they would fight with each other, but very, very close. I liked it. And one thing that I definitely learned was the fact that a lot of us, we ground guys, we talk about our air wing guys in a negative way a lot of times. That deployment, probably within about 10 minutes of being there after we had a relief in place, I had so much respect for them. And I said, from then on, I would never talk about the air wing the same way. We had a troops in contact alarm go off. And I watched Marines, and I'm just standing there watching, because obviously they give you 30 minutes to get birds to spin. You see some of the similarities right here, how we move. Tankers, we don't mess around either.
Quick reaction force.
That's right. And we move. We jump on that tank, and we're jumping in, grabbing the helmet, you put it, and you're moving down the road in a heartbeat.
Right.
But I watch these guys do the same thing, but with an aircraft. And these guys, my guys, would have those helos spinning in less than 10 minutes. And many times in 5 minutes. You see young Marines diving under a Cobra. And I remember seeing him, and I asked my master sergeant, I said, hey, what the guy just fell? And he said, no, he didn't fall. He dove, Sergeant Major. He dove to arm the weapons so that it could get up fast. So they take their job seriously. They know, just like us, when they say we need Tigers, you remember on the net hearing people, we need Tigers, we need tanks, we need tanks. And we're moving. Right. Same thing with them. They would be moving because they knew, just like us, they knew that another Marine at the end of that radio was calling for their help. And we always did that. I mean, in OIF, I remember this. Hey, we need, LAR would call us, so many units, and we'd be moving. My platoon was like, sleep was not something that you did, but you moved. And that's what these guys did. And I'm very proud to have served with Vipers.
Just you telling that story reminds me of quick reaction force coming out of Camp Fallujah, and, reacting to, a particular event and having that sit rep delivered on the radio. And as you're moving, as you're getting your comms set up and all that, you're taking down as much grid information, as much information as you can. And that is truly phenomenal. You then, unfortunately, I will say, reported to your next duty assignment. And this time it was with 3rd Assault Amphibian Battalion. And as a tanker, those are our rivals, shall we say, part of 1st Marine Division in August of 2008. And then went on the 15 March, went on the 13th MU, 13th Marine Expeditionary Unit. And did you constantly have to remind the trackers that Yak Yaz is a tank thing?
No, I not too often. Let me back up real quick on something that you said, how we go full circle, if you don't mind.
Sure.
It's interesting how close a relation, how small our corps is, because I found later one of our engagements, I have a citation right over here that talks about it, but on our road to Baghdad, there was an incoming Cobra coming in, and it was going to take fire. My crew, my platoon, and I saw and took out a air defense weapon and all the people around it. Later on, just talking to the pilots, we found out that it was that same squadron that I ended up being part of. That pilot was extremely thankful, and he didn't know that it was my platoon. And it just goes to show how much tankers do influence the Marine Corps. How many, I can say that my platoon saved lives, and I'm so proud of them. But it's neat when you start putting things together. Wow, that day, yeah, and I still have grids written down in my notebooks and stuff. So, yeah. But I'm sorry. Go ahead. I sorry to interrupt.
That's fine. No, I was just trying to pick on the trackers for yes, but
no, you know what? That was and you can even see the November flag because I just saw it. But you know what? Of people to work with. Of course, we banter back and forth about, hey, you guys, you guys wish you were tankers and this, they knew I was a tanker. Never had a problem with that. I would never shy away from that. Never. So proud of that. It was interesting because many people don't know, but at one time, at the same time, simultaneously, Scott Helms had second tracks, and I had third tracks on Camp Pendleton. He had a Lejeune. So 2 tankers were the sergeant majors of both battalions, East Coast and West Coast. But no, it was a good tour. It's obviously a different community. They are close as well, but they're a lot bigger. But it was they all knew I was a tanker. Matter of fact, my commander, who was I had 2 great commanders there, and I remember him because I have a bulldog, and he says, "Hey, you know, it was a pup at the time. He's 12 years old now." And he says, "Hey, why don't you bring him in?" And I did. We had an office for him in the battalion, and his name is Tank. And he's like, "Oh, Sergeant Major, why'd you name him Tank? Why'd you call him Amtrak?" And I used to laugh. I said, "When you get a bulldog, you can call him Amtrak. This guy's name is Tank." You know.
Next assignment is one that I found to be extremely interesting. 2013 in April, you reported to Joint Task Force Guantanamo Bay in Cuba. This is obviously part of U.S. Southcom, and then you assumed the Joint Task Force Guantanamo Bay as the sergeant major. That had to be an amazing experience.
Amazing, really. But the one before it, I'll tell you, got me more prepared, was being the 13th Mune Sergeant Major. That one prepared me because of all that, how you're dealing internationally, how you're dealing with other countries, you're dealing with embassies quite often, not always, but when you go into the countries you have to meet there. I've had to go and meet generals from other countries, Jordan, and we're stopping and you're doing the roundabout, if you will. So that prepared me for Gitmo. When I put my name in to be slated, very, very difficult. You know, the chances are slim because you're going against not only your fellow sergeants majors, but now you're going against all DOD.
Right.
Okay, you know, I'm a tanker. I don't, you know, I'm gonna get it for the fight. You know, let's do it. The sergeant major, the Marine Corps called me and said, "Hey, you know, you're slated. Well, you're not slated. We're recommending you now. It goes to the joint. So it's up to General Kelly, General Kelly, and then I got the call that I was selected for it. So it was very, very. I'm very honored to have served there, but it does open. You get to see the flip aside, the fact that remember we were fighting a lot of these guys. A lot of these guys we were fighting on the battlefield. These weren't nice guys. I'm so sick of the media making them out to they're just nice guys that were on their way to church or to the mosque, and they were picked up. They were doing a charity work. No, all of them are bad guys. I'm going to tell you that right now. When I got there, none of that what I tell you about Gitmo is secret. It's all open source. I would never compromise that information. When I got there were 166 detainees. When I left, there were 120. So there was a push to get rid of them. But when I walked out there and I would see them, I didn't ever go to visit them. I went to visit the men and women on the tier. Those men and women that were on the forefront of defending freedom. Those men and women there was every branch, had every branch serving with me, and they were out there doing a phenomenal job. I mean, and that's what I said at the beginning. It's always about the man in the arena. It's the man or the woman, in this case, that's doing the fight. And those great men and women out there in Gitmo were doing a phenomenal job. And you rarely ever hear about that. You rarely hear about it. You hear about this poor KSM that didn't get this or get that. KSM, obviously everybody knows that's the mastermind of the 9/11 terrorist attack. He is there, and many others that are bad. Not many, I shouldn't say. They've really taken the numbers down. But that is I just tell people, most people can't visit there, of course. My family, I was there for 2 years. My family would come visit me often, but it's just something to keep in the back of your mind that there's people right now that are down there serving. And one of the things that a lot of people don't know, I always have to tell the story about them because it's just awesome. I mean, there's young men and young women, average age of 19 years old, that on a daily basis when I was there, that they get splashed. What splashing means is, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term, but what it means is that one of these terrorists will take a liquid concoction of all sorts, bodily fluids, and they will throw it on them when they come by their cell. The cells aren't like people think that they're bars and stuff. They're just, modern, very modern, state-of-the-art facilities. And they would take the pin. Everybody knows the government pin, the black one. They would take part of that apart, stick it through the crack, and they come through. They'd squeeze it and just douse them with these fluids. And many times, that's just horrific when you think about it, because you don't know what's going on, what's in those fluids. Right. Many times they'd be punched, they'd be kicked. I've seen footage. I've seen, because I'd receive the reports in the morning when I'd come in and see them, or I'd be walking the tier at 1 o'clock in the morning and they'd tell me this just happened. every time that young, mostly soldiers, sometimes sailors, would have the resolve to say, I'm not leaving, because they go to medical, and if they do that, you can have the rest of the day. I'm not. I'm going back on that tier because I'm not going to let that terrorist have the satisfaction.
Right.
I mean, that's the greatness of our American servicemen and women today, and I think it's awesome. Tankers exemplify that, because what's given me this background all along to be able to be successful. I always tell you, by the grace of God, and I had great leaders that taught me in tanks. Some of you out there, if somebody's listening, they'll remember Jim Graham, big top. And I tell everybody, we all have nicknames. We have call signs for everybody. Some are good, some aren't so good. But Big Top, he'd come out when I was a young Marine at Las Flores and say, you know what? Listen, guys, listen, Marines. He says, remember this: leadership is not a popularity contest. Right. And we need it, and that stuck with me throughout my career. It's not a popularity contest. We need to be fair, firm. Teach our Marines, show them how to do right, tell them when they're wrong, but lift them up when they're doing the right thing. And so many of those great attitudes and so many of those great leaders, instilled lessons on me that I kept throughout my career, all in Tank Battalion, all at 1st or 3rd tanks, also in Okinawa. But all these tankers, and many of them, like I said, I stay in touch with because we're still friends to this day. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're
Keep
fine.
going.
No, you're fine. No, I appreciate you talking about the resolve, because, it is your background as a tanker that made you so successful, and particularly in such a difficult billet as Gitmo. And it's unfortunate, what the media has done, and what the overall perspective of Gitmo. I mean, Gitmo is looked upon as being a very negative word, negative time. But those Marines, those service members, those soldiers and airmen and sailors that were there, they were representing the United States, and they were doing it very well. And I'm sure as their sergeant major would not let anything, that even would tarnish that. And I appreciate you bringing that out about the resolve of those individuals, because I think that it does have a bad connotation, and one that needs to be broken. And we need to talk about the courage that those individuals demonstrate on a daily basis.
Yeah. You asked me before we came on, some of the things I do, and that's one of the, when I do motivational speaking, that people want to know. There's such an interest in Gitmo. And when I start sharing with them, then I have a slide. Sometimes I use a slide presentation, and I start showing them what it looks like, because you can, like I said, it's all on open source. They're amazed. They're like, wow, we can't believe that. They don't know that there's TV. They don't know that there's things like that. I always thought it would be the size of the 21 area on Camp Pendleton. It's a lot bigger, but it's roughly, it's 35 square miles. It's probably, if you looked at it, it's probably from 21 area up to Edson Range area. But it's just interesting, because a lot of people don't know. They just think that they've seen A Few Good Men, and they think, it's like that, and it's nothing like that. But yeah. I said, a lot of people don't know what it's like in Gitmo. They think that it's like A Few Good Men. It's not like that. There are some interesting things that I could tell you on another time, because it would take too long. That are things that they take in a little bit of reality, and they made into Hollywood. But there are some, definitely, because there was, back in the early 80s, there was if you will, a code red, but they blew that up. There's nothing like that, of course, but just little similarities. So
April of 2015, you relinquished your responsibilities as Joint Task Force Sergeant Major, and then subsequently retired October 1st, 2015, which culminated a very long and very proud service record there, starting back as a tanker and really finishing as a tanker, just a tanker doing other things. And as you know, Sergeant Major, this channel has a message. And as somebody that has been extremely successful with both in and out of uniform with your continued community service, what message do you have for today's Marines, in particular today's tankers?
Yeah. You know what? Stay the course. I know there's a little bit of gloom. A lot of people are upset, but you know what? We're tankers. We bounce back. We'll be fine. It doesn't mean that I say give in and just say no, but the things you learn from those great gunnies, those great, whoever you are right now at whatever level you are, but somebody taught you. We were all baby tankers at one time. Those guys that brought you up, they did a good job, I'm sure. Remember those lessons, the tough lessons. Remember, think about it. It's hot. You're out on that ramp. You're working your tail off. That sun is beating on you, and it parts, new track just came in. What do? You just make it happen.
Mhm.
We didn't think about it. We don't worry about it. And I'm gonna tell them all that one day when you leave that, when you're done with the Corps and you retire, you're gonna miss even those crummy days, those terrible days, those dirty days, greasy days out on that tank ramp, out on range 500. You're gonna miss. You may not miss the atmosphere so much, but you're gonna miss every Marine that you spoke to, every Marine that you heard across your CVC, every Marine that asked you for help or that you needed help from. That's what you're going to miss is each other. And again, that's what makes us so special as tankers is that it is a brotherhood. It is so tight. And a lot of people, like I said, they don't understand that. But I think that's what I say is just remember that. Remember who you are. Remember where you come from. Uh, I got people, like I said, that when I left, when I became a first sergeant major, people, and they always knew I was a tanker. Because a lot of the things that are in my I love me room, I carried around with me because I was so proud of my tank community. And we have something to be proud of. We have over 100 years of history, of great guys. You could think of some of them right now. It's the Caderos out there, the Mummies out there, the Grahams, the Rambos. There's so many phenomenal guys and just guys that helped us be better. And so remember, keep your head up high, stay Marine, stay, gotta stay on target.
I'm gonna ask you a personal question, here, Sergeant Major. So when everything's quiet, and I know your world is extremely busy, and you probably don't have a whole lot of quiet time, but when you do have that quiet time, and when you think back of your time as a tanker, what's the one thing that you miss most?
Hmm. Yeah, I kind of answered already. Just the Marines,
Hmm.
just the Marines, really. I was very blessed yesterday because a lot of my Marines, I say my Marines affectionately, keep in touch with me. And one just so happened, I was at Pendleton yesterday and I said, "Hey, how are you doing?" And he says, "Hey, guess where I am?" He lives on the East Coast. He's very proud of him. He's doing good as a contractor. He says, "I'm on Camp Pendleton." And we met up and I hadn't seen him since 2003. I took him on, he was a Lance Corporal, he was my driver. I took him on his first float.
Wow.
And it was good to see, and it was interesting to see these Marines be successful. It's good to see them. I know they're going to be successful. Most of them are going to be successful wherever they land. We're tankers, we're Marine tankers.
Right.
We don't give up. We make things happen. So and then a lot of our guys, he was sharing with me, and I reminded him because a lot of them will get into contracting jobs. They'll get into jobs. Come on, guys, because a lot of times I'll tell them, well, you've never dealt with these small. I said, you've dealt with the 50 cal, you've dealt with the 120 smoothbore, you've done. If you can learn any of this, and it's a very sophisticated weapon system, if you can do that, if you can master that, you can master every other small arm that they have. It's not hard. You just have to, we can all read, you open that book and you read. But the Marines is what I miss the most when I'm sitting around. Every day, people ask me, almost every day, especially when I was doing some other things in the community, people would ask me, do you ever miss the Corps? I said, every day, every day. I was just blessed to make it to 31 and a half years. But you know what? Every day, miss them every day. I tell people, if you don't, when I hear the Marines hymn today, there's a lot of faces I see. A lot of faces I can still smell inside of a tank. I can still hear that round go off. I can still hear myself yelling at someone to move his hand so we can see him because he's telling us on the MBD, move your hand up.
Right.
Or before we got the mics, the long yo-yo cords.
Right.
But all those things, it's okay because even though, like I said, we're a rough, tough bunch of guys that fight amongst each other, it's still a good camaraderie that we have amongst tankers. And that's the kind of things that I think about when I'm, I'll be telling these stories. Even my former team, my campaign team, they would hear stories because I would tell them, I'm just sitting around and talking, and someone thinks all of a sudden they hit you. You have great stories about, and it just hit me right now. A great story about Lance Corporal Diaz. I mean, Lance Corporal Diaz on the road to Baghdad. A lot of you guys know Machine Gun Miller. He was my wingman. One of my, and Machine Gun Miller goes over the radio and says, "Hey, Jefe, I'm bingo right now. I'm out. I need to reload my reload. I cover you. I'm covering." Yeah. What Diaz does, Diaz jumps up on top of the turret with the 9mm and says, "I got you covered." Reload, and he's with his 9mm.
Nice.
I mean, that's the type of stories that just come to your head when you think about these. I mean, Diaz, at the time, was 19 years old.
Yep.
I mean, phenomenal Marines doing phenomenal things. There's so many tankers out there, and I'm glad you're doing this because there's so many tankers that have stories like that. There's stories like that that are of Marines that are fighting the good fight in combat. And I could go for hours. People keep telling me I need to write my book. I do, probably because I wrote all my notes. But just thinking about things like that. We can tell stories all day, but keep doing what you're doing because this is going to help our legacy continue, because we do have a long and proud legacy as Marine tankers. And we can't forget that. I hope that we continue to get together. I hope more. I just communicated with Manny Herrera today. I hope that many will come out to the deactivation of first tanks on May 23rd this year. I definitely plan to be there because it'll be a sad day, but it's okay. I say it's okay. I don't think it's okay, but that's a different story. But it's time to close the battalion correctly. So I hope to see many of our brothers there. And I don't know what other questions you have.
I did. The stories are amazing, and the reason for this channel is just that, because you were clearly somebody that would have been invited, multiple times to come to the battalions for our birthdays as a guest speaker. And you would have had that venue in front of a bunch of tankers, being able to tell those stories that are so near and dear. And it's important that history does not lose those stories. And we have not done a very good job, in my opinion, as a community, really capturing them. And that's why I value those stories tremendously, because that is really the essence of the channel, and that's why it's so important. I thank you for saying that, and I'll give you the opportunity to give us one more if you want.
I was thinking about it just because it hit me right now, but I got to tell, and I do have his permission to tell this story because I've asked him. But Viejo is my gunner, and a lot of you tankers have went through some problems while we've been overseas. And Viejo, I knew about this because he was getting ready to he was having problems at home. I'll just put it that way. And I could see that he was going south on me quickly. We were on the road back there. We stopped in the middle of the road for maintenance. Those of you that were out there know our tanks were not living up. I mean, they were really having a hard time. We were losing in connector bolts. We were just really hard on us. And Viejo, that guy was not looking good. So I was on him. What the heck's wrong with you? And long story short, he was not doing well at all. And I ended up having to do some things to kind of discipline him, if you will. And told him to go away. Think about it. I was very upset because we were in combat. We don't have time for this. We do not have time for this. I need you in the fight. If you're not going to do it, just go sit out right now. And set him down for a little while. Give him a little, if you will, a Marine timeout. We didn't have time. He didn't stop working. Don't get me wrong. He didn't stop working. You got work to do. But about an hour later, after we were doing a lot of work, I called him over and I said, "What is it going to be? Are you in? Seriously, do I need to call a Hummer up here? I'll go 3-man crew. Don't care, because I need you in the fight or you're not." That young man came up and, we had more choice words. And he says, I'm in it. I'm in it, Gunny. I'm in it. All right. And I got it. All right. And I knew what I was doing. I'm not going into detail on the actual conversation because that's not important, but I got him back in the fight. And he says, I'm in it. He would, right there, I know he would have ran through a wall for me. 2 days later, we have an assault in the middle of the night. He does great. I put him on target. He hits a Impala. Uh, it's in my notes, but I think it was 1,600 meters. Half of the Impala, it's about 1978 Impala. They were coming at us off and on the road in the middle of the night. We're in thermal. He goes off the side of the road. I said, fire. All he could see was the roof. Okay. Before I get done, Machine Gun Miller is yelling. I mean, as soon as we fire, the speed of a sable round, Machine Gun Miller is yelling, target, target, target. The obscuration clears. The roof is peeled back. Mm. We see a guy get out. The next day, when all is cleared, we go by, we look at there was a lot of destruction in that vehicle, but somebody did make it out. But the great end of that story, because of his great actions, and this was a guy that was getting ready to quit on me. Okay. Remember what I was saying about those great leaders, bringing them back. I'm not considering myself one, but we got him back in the fight. For that action and others, he was awarded the NAM with Combat V. He didn't quit. He didn't give up. We got him back in the fight. And that's what we do. We never quit on each other. We never give up on each other. We keep each other in the fight. And like I said, I got his permission to tell that story, so I don't ever tell it with that because that's a little personal. But the main thing is that's what we do as tankers. We help each other. We lift each other up. We knock each other down when we have to. We slap each other around. We have to, not literally, but we do. And that's what makes us what we are, great Marine Corps tankers.
You may not call yourself a great leader, but I will, because you don't have the track record that you do, and you're not assigned to those billets, especially those joint billets, without being a great leader and being a great sergeant major. And history has shown us, sergeant major, that you are one of the great ones. And I really thank you for coming on here. I thank the subscribers. You guys have all made this channel, it is what it is, and the numbers keep growing. If you have not done already so, please do subscribe. Hit the notification bell for notifications. Sergeant Major, I thank you so much. I know you're extremely busy. Your time is very sparse, and thank you for making the time to come on here today and tell these stories. It truly means just the world to me, and really from the bottom of my heart, thank you.
Well, thank you so much. The pleasure is mine. I do envy you because you have a better background than mine. I'm envious. I feel like I'm back in the tank just watching you. So.
Absolutely. Thank you. Semper Fi.
Thank you. Semper Fi. Tanks out.